insightful that I wanted to share with everyone, so I decided to make a short video about it. So I hope you'll bear with me for this joke that Spassky told about Korchnoi and what it takes to be a champion of chess. So in case you guys are unfamiliar, Boris Spassky was one of the world champions of chess, and so of course arguably one of the best players in the world, and he was also an extremely humorous person. I'm going to post a link in the description to a video from BBC in which Boris Spassky is imitating Anatoly Karpov, but that's not what our video is about today. He was in conversation with a guy named Kevin Spraggett, and so here's a little cartoon of him. He's one of the strongest Canadian players ever, and this conversation somehow got transcribed to the internet at some point around 2000, and in their conversation, they were talking about Viktor Korchnoi, pictured here with the sunglasses. And Korchnoi is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, player to ever not become world champion. He was extremely close on multiple occasions. He played many candidate cycles, and he played Spassky probably something like 30, 60 times. Like really, really a lot of games they played. And he was within 1 point of becoming the world champion, I think, in at least one of his matches. And some people will speculate that there are some conspiratorial reasons that he never became champion. He was not favored by the Soviet Union that he came from, and he eventually was cast as an exile. And so everywhere he played, people would like chant crush him," and things like that. So not that popular in his home country, and people called him Victor the Terrible. So Boris made this claim when he was speaking with Spraggett. He said that Korchnoi is extremely good, but he's lacking exactly one quality that you need to become a champion. So this seemed outlandish, right? So, I mean, it makes sense that it would be odd to claim that someone so good at chess, like Korchnoi, is actually lacking a quality entirely to become a champion. So Spraggett, in this conversation, kind of urged Boris on. He's like, what do you mean? What could he be missing? So Boris started out with a list. He praised Korchnoi for all these qualities that he does possess of a champion, and his list is quite good. Number one, killer instinct. So to be a champion, you need to have that killer instinct. Sometimes as a coach, I meet students and their parents ask me like, "Oh, I don't think that my kid has the attitude to be a winner. Like they don't want to win enough." And that certainly is a factor if you want to be a champion. You need to have that will to win. You can't let it go at any moment because even if you're playing against your friend or someone that you like, you have to finish them off to become the champion. That's just part of the game. Number two, capacity for work. So Spassky was saying that Korchnoi has such a capacity for work that he could be a world champion. Such a good worker. It would surely bring you right up close to the seat of the world championship. So he has that quality for sure. Number three, iron nerves. I don't think anyone is close to Korchnoi in terms of his nerves of steel that he had. Even in intense time pressure, he never ever faltered. Number four, his calculation ability. Obviously, calculation is a major part of chess. It's probably the most energetically intensive and difficult tasks that you have to undertake at the chessboard. And Korchnoi is maybe matched in this way only by Fischer. Number five, tenacity. There he is, the guy himself. He played chess at the top level, top flight chess for his entire life. So he was extremely tenacious just as a career player. He never gave up and switched to something else. But even on the board, he would never accept a draw, never back down, that kind of thing. I mean, I guess he'd accept a draw if he really had to, but he'd always fight to the bitter end. Number six, ability and counterattack. According to Spassky, he was unrivaled in this particular regard, that when people attacked Korchnoi, they would frequently find themselves actually under attack themselves. So this is one of his unique gifts that would definitely have brought him to a world championship if he wasn't missing this one quality. So I know Kevin Spraggett's probably wondering, like, what could it possibly be? All these things sound great. Having even half of these qualities should make you a champion of some sort. So number seven, flawless technique. In this regard, Korchnoi was supposedly even better than Capablanca, who is regularly praised for having impeccable technique. But Korchnoi probably he didn't have the caveat of being a lazy player, which is something that Capablanca had a reputation for. Number 8, concentration. So at the board, nothing could really distract this guy, and his ability to just push through against any resistance he found at the board was unreal. This is what Spassky had to say about him. Number 9, impervious to distraction. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the concentration, but it means that nothing at the board or off the board could dissuade him from his goal of winning the game. Although it is said that during his match with Karpov, some hypnotists were hired to sit in the crowd and do their best to mess with Korchnoi and make him lose his phenomenal concentration. Number 10, brilliant strategist. So chess is a game not just of tactics and your knowledge ahead of time, it's also about your strategy. So in this way, he was unparalleled as well. Number 11, superb tactics. So if his strategy wasn't good, his tactics are second to none. Number 12, amazing opening preparation. So back in the day when Korchnoi was playing the most, people were mostly preparing by reading books and coming up with things on their own, and also keeping up to date on the current games. So Korchnoi's preparation would just blow people away at that point in time. And he also survived in the opening against the top players coming into the 2000s because he continued to play in his old age. So that shows that he was not only profoundly aware of what's going on in all the openings, but that he also was able to adapt to the changing circumstances in opening theory. Number 13, of why he should have been a champion, deep psychology. So this one it's hard to understand if you haven't played him, of course. So I'm just speaking from what Spassky had to say. He claimed that Korchnoi was extremely aware of what his opponents were up to. There's more about that later. And was very good at manipulating them psychologically. Number 14, supernatural will to win. Here we have him pictured in the midst of a game, never getting up, always focused on the board, definitely there to win the game, never showing up to just make a draw and rest for the next game. He brought his full energy every single time. Number 15, deep knowledge of his opponents. This goes with the psychology as well, but it also kind of ties in with the opening prep. You know, he's certainly very aware, not just of their preparation, but also of their strengths and weaknesses. Number 16, endless energy and discipline. This guy was so intense, even in his old age, famously intense. That's part of how he got his nickname of Viktor the Terrible. So what was he lacking, right? This is what Spraggett was basically begging for at this point. He's like, come on, Boris, you've said so many great things about Korchnoi. What could possibly be lacking in this guy that prevents him from becoming the world champion? And so what Boris had to say was that the one thing he's missing is he has no talent. What a funny thing to say about him, right? After all this praise, he has no talent. Supposedly at this point, he just like roared laughing and went away. So it's a very interesting joke. But it also kind of raises the question, like, what is talent? And is it necessary to be a champion? It could just be a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you become a champion, you could say, hey, I've got talent. And if you don't, you would say, maybe I don't have talent. So it could also just be kind of maybe a tautology, saying he isn't the champion just because he did not become the champion. So saying that Korchnoi has no talent, what does that say about us, right? Everyone who's not a champion of chess. And in the modern day, there might be a couple other things to add to what it takes to be a champion, because in the modern times, the game is certainly changing. So anyway, this is my little presentation of this joke that I really enjoyed. Obviously, it's not my joke. I'm just sharing it with everyone because I think it's really amusing. So check out the description to get the link to Spassky's imitation of Karpov. He was a really funny guy, and there are a lot of interesting anecdotes about this guy. So feel free to do some reading if you want to hear more about this character of chess. And if you really like this, feel free to give me a subscribe so that I know that you guys are watching and enjoying, so that I'll make more.